Good afternoon, everybody. We are really glad to be here with Charles today.
Yes.
We have a 30-minute masterclass with you to deal with the issue of inclusion and artificial intelligence. And we'll be picking the case of visual impairment. But first, I'll just let Charles introduce himself quickly.
I'm Charles Lenay from Compiègne University of Technology. I'm professor in cognitive science. I work on how technologies are part of our human experience, how they constitute our ability to perceive and think.
And I'm Corentin VOISEUX. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Hypra, which is a French startup company dealing with the empowerment of visually impaired people through assistive technology. Okay, so Charles and I have been extremely listening to the what was going on the main stage, and the big issue was, whether artificial intelligence would replace human, or at what moment would that happen. The question I want to raise with you today is not whether artificial intelligence will replace human, but how technology and human will meet at some point to improve the life of humans at all. So we've been introduced so far. So Charles is a researcher in human sciences, and my curriculum also brought me to study human sciences under the light of technology. So the big issue we'll be dealing today is the notion of visual impairment and the application of technology to solve, as the physicians say, the issue of visual impairment. Maybe some of you know the figure of how many visually impaired people live in France. Maybe some of you have a clue. It's 2 million people. 2 million people in France being suffering or living with a visual impairment. So it's 90% of them, they acquire visual impairment during their life, because most of the time the one living or the one being given birth with visual impairment, most of the time parents know it before. So as time passes by, it's more and more people acquiring visual impairment over life. And this figure will grow threefold by 2050 for two reasons. First, the explosion of diabetes, and second, because of the advancement of life expectancy. There are more than 300 different reasons for visual impairments, starting from car accident with vascular diseases, macular degeneration, glaucoma. And so visual impairment is transversal to many different fields of physicians, starting from ophthalmologists, of course, but going to neurophysicians and so on. So as you see, the issue is only starting. And when you look at the way those people live, and I put the brackets in live because we believe that those people, they do not achieve the full potential of what they could do in their life, because let's look at their limitations. They are limited in the way they move, of course. Have you ever asked yourself how you would walk or how you would read a map without your eyes, or your vision being severely inflicted? So mobility is the first limitation. Reading is their second limitation. How do you maintain access to your practical information, to your books, to websites, to the most of the information that you need to experience fully your life? This is the second limitation. And the third limitation is about writing. How do you keep on writing to your friends, to your boss, to your administrations? How do you dial on a search engine? All those issues are raised in the context of visual impairments. And let's have a look at what's going on the way they view the world. This is certain pictures of how visually impaired people view the world according to their impairment. Most of the diseases are degenerative, which means that most of the people, they lose sight over life, and starting from the diagnosis, most of them, they know they will lose sight after a certain time, but they never know exactly which that period of time will last. Okay, let's have a look at the physician side now. So I'm on the side of the patient, and I'm listening to my ophthalmologist most of the time, and the ophthalmologist most of the time is saying, you know, I'm sorry, we cannot do anything anymore. That's one type of ophthalmologist. Or saying, you know, you should better stay at your place now because we don't have any solution for you. Or so this is the first type of what the physician might say to the patient once they have to announce the diagnosis. The second type of attitude that physician might have is this one, saying, you know, research is on gene therapy, on stem cells, and biomed technologies are moving extremely fast. So, you know, you never know. You should better keep faith because you might at some point have one of those technologies restoring your sight in the long run. You have also many biomass research is working on artificial vision, saying it's a promising technology. And certain of the physicians, of course, believe and claim that we are really close from a revolutionary medical breakthrough so that vision impairment will disappear at some point. I'm using those words because in one of the MP reports dealing with assistive technology and vision impairment, a certain MP wrote that, you know, in 28 wrote that vision impairment would become a dream 10 years after. We are in 2018, and all the vision impaired people that were announced that they would, you know, see their sight be restored can still wait, because when you look at the state of the art for most of the biomed technology and to most of those artificial intelligence technology, you see actually that we are extremely far, from the revolutionary breakthrough. As a consequence, artificial intelligence in that case, in that specific case, is turning into a deceptive dream. Because most of the people believe that, you know, they might be restored in their initial capacities, but waiting years after years, they believe that, you know, technology is not advanced enough. And maybe some of you know the Kubler-Ross change curve. You know, this model has been used to analyze exactly the psychology of people that are submitted to the need of change. And believe me, when you are being announced a handicapped, you need to change, and this is a big change in your life. When we talk about health, let's also focus on the notion of psychology also, which clearly has an impact on the rest of the body also, right? And this is why Hypra, as a human and social sciences company, we focus very much on the psychological factor to analyze how those patients go through the change curve here. And what we see dealing with our researchers is that most of the patients, they start at the depression stage here, which means that, you know, the notion of rebounds after the announcement of their handicap doesn't occur. It means most of the time there is no experimentation, no decision, and no reintegration within society. Maybe some of you know vision impaired people around your close circle of friends, but when I announce the figure of 2 million people, maybe you don't believe me, because we don't see those people, because they are not within society, because they are left out. For mostly this reason is that there is no notion of readaptation and reintegration within society, starting from the medical sphere and starting from the hospital themselves that are dealing with those patients. So this creates what we call the vicious cycle of no readaptation, of no readaptation of the patients, which means patients live in the hope of salvation by technology, and they hope that they will be restored in their initial capacity of seeing exactly the way they used to see. As a consequence, they are discouraged to invest efforts in readaptation, and physicians and ophthalmologists most of the time believe this is not their role to get committed into assistive technology. This is the way for a majority of physicians, this is the way things occur right now. Let's have a look of how things could occur tomorrow. The physician could say to the patients, you know, of course, I understand your despair, I understand the fact that you're going through extremely difficult situation. But the situation could be worse. Mostly because nowadays we have solutions that will help you to re-empower you in your daily autonomy. Among those solutions, you have what we call assistive technologies, which for most of them are not artificial intelligence. And so the physician could say, you know, we have assistive technologies and people providing the right training so that you will have your capacity to have access to information, to communication and to mobility restored, but not by restoring your sight as it was before, but as finding a way to do what you used to do, but by some other ways. Let's have a look of exactly what we mean by assistive technology. We mean what we have called a universally accessible computer that reads anything that's on the computer to the patient. So you have a vocal feedback on the computer, you have a fully visual assistance on the computer so that you can zoom, so that you can inverse the contrast, so that you can adapt and customize the computer for each and every visual impairment. And most of it, you can read any mail, handwritten mail, by scanning it and having the computer reading everything that's being scanned for you. Most of this exists in the state of the art as it is today in technology. But it's not integrated. It's not made easily usable by the user so that everything of that becomes doable by 80% of the people that are actually going through the notion of limitation of autonomy. Not only people can read and write with a computer today, with a universally accessible computer, but they can also have access to pictures, maps and colors, and this is exactly what the UTC, the university we are working with, has been developing alongside with us, and Charles will say a few words about it.
Yes, quickly. This system, the name is Tactile system, is a system that allows the user to access to digital content through touch. It's very simple. The idea is that you control the movement of a receptor field, a small receptor field on the screen. And when the receptor field crosses a colored pixel of shape on the screen, you have a tactile feedback on the finger of your free hand. And through the movement of exploration on one side and the tactile feedback on the other side, you are able to perceive the shapes and the layout of objects on the screen, and so to understand many things in geography and mathematics and all those situations where information are distributed in space, are organized in the space of the screen. So that is something very important that you don't have through auditive display, but only through touch and active exploration of the screen. Here there is 3 people together that are touching together a map of France and learning to follow the river and understanding the space, the spatial organization of things. Here it is a bus line and things like that. We have many examples. We have worked with professors in mathematics and many domains where we show that it's easy to improve, in fact, the cursor on the screen to become a tactile cursor. So it's something that could be very useful also for DMLA and situation of degenerative situation, where you still use your cursor, but you don't see it very well because there could be a blind spot at this place, but you have a tactile feedback, and slowly, as your disease improve, your ability to still use your mouse or your touchpad to explore the screen is maintained.
And when we have decided to search for a university to develop technology, we have made the state of the art of the many French and international universities working on assistive technology for visually impaired, and we have picked the UTC not by the criteria of artificial intelligence, but because this technology was, according to us, the most empowering technology in universities, like most of it. And our main goal, by developing technology, is actually re-empowering people. And this is why, like the first slide was this one. Maybe you've noticed. This one was how, we can make technology and this is Da Vinci hand. How we can make those two meet, and we can make those two meet through human empowerment, which means through human training, because when you talk about those technologies of Tactos, of the universally accessible computer, and the many technologies that we have within, people need to be trained in order to be re-empowered. So that's why we provide, and all research in human and social and human sciences is actually about how can we re-empower people through the right human accompaniment. And we do so because our trainers, which is like a first in the world as its case, our trainers are themselves visually impaired, which means when we talk of peer counseling, of peer emulation, that means that visually impaired people, because they know how to use the computer better than any one of us here seeing properly, they are the right to fit so that they can train other people inflicted by, touched by the same situation. And secondly, because in terms of psychology, they know what the people have been through. So in terms of human support, of course, they are doing also readaptation, like in the noble sense of the word. So we provide human support and a customization of each and every technology, which means human service, alongside technology, so that people have technology that they can master at the end. Not only technology that provide extremely good use cases, but that no one actually among like the general population truly masters. So that's why we have those crew of trainers, most of them being visually impaired, either blind or visually impaired, so that they can train and assist like our users. Just a last word on, for the sake of intellectual honesty, what we do, Hypra, Tactos, and most of our partner associations and university, it's not truly speaking, it's not artificial intelligence. It's, as Charles is saying, it's artificial system to make our user more intelligent, right? Maybe, Charles, you want to say a word about this?
Oh, no, just to say that as human, our intelligence is always artificial. It is only through technical device and technical histories that we could be able to think as we think. So, but I think that what we call artificial intelligence now could be very helpful to change our way of thinking. But they don't, it is not a substitution, it's a supplementation. It's a way how the technical device could improve our way of perceiving, of interacting, of memorizing and thinking in general.
And the good side with computing not being artificial intelligence is this one. It's predictable. Because artificial intelligence is not predictable because it's a learning process. So it's mostly at some point the machine, as we've been talking on the main stage, the machine taking decisions at the very place of the user. But in that side, what we do is not artificial intelligence, but the good thing is that people can rely on the technology that they are using. Because the behavior of the technology is predictable, so that they can expect the behavior to make sure that they can rely on technology to access information, to access content, in the case where you have other, like tech companies, providing accessibility regression, for instance. You are visually impaired, and suddenly your computer doesn't work anymore because they've been updating the computer, and you cannot access your mails, internet, or writing like a simple text because it's not vocalized any longer because it's not stable. Here we have stability, we have predictability, we have reliability, and this is why we've made also those technical choices to make sure that we can ensure all those notions to our users. As a word of conclusion, we'd like to make a call to actions. Maybe we have physicians like here in the room. Maybe we have people from the big pharma, people from the med tech also. But we have mostly like a call to action for physicians. Our first call to action is that artificial intelligence is promising. It has a wide range of promising use cases in the medical sphere. But please, let's not provide or nurture fake faith for the patient themselves, so that, like in our case, we are the developers of assistive technology or the occupational therapists or the one that are later or further, like in the care chain, so that those people does not suffer from the hope that the patient might have or the fake hope the patient might have in artificial intelligence. So it's a call for a ethical use of the notion of artificial intelligence. And when we talk about those many technologies that are supposed to replace sight for the visually impaired people, let's be extremely careful about how we introduce them toward the patients, because most of the time they are not replacing sight. And we are nurturing a deceptive vicious cycle that prevents people from moving forward because they expect a restoration of their initial sight. And second call to action is for physicians, because I've been engaged into many conversations with physicians, starting from ophthalmologists to neuro physicians, and a bunch of them is saying, it's not our responsibility to engage into what you call readaptation, advising, informing, orientating patients toward assistive technology, because it's not my responsibility. It's maybe the responsibility of the physician coming after me, if such a physician exists in my geographical area. Let's move out, let's change the mindset on this topic. Let's say like mostly psychology and the mental health of people is part of the notion of health. So we are all responsible of the psychology of the patient that, go through our cabinets or hospitals, and let's engage more concretely, more actively in the way those patients will find the right tools, the right training, the right people to talk, so that they can rebound after the handicap has been announced.